Winsor is here. Winsor. Hello, Winsor. You're on mute, Winsor.
Good morning.
Good morning there, Winsor.
It's good afternoon for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. So ready? We can start, Winsor.
Yeah, I'm just getting set up here, and I need to figure out how to get my PowerPoint. Here we go.
Yeah, so nice to have you among us today. So let's start by introducing our guest speaker for today, Winsor Jenkins. Is a leadership development expert, an ICF coach, an author of many chapters and many books, and his last book is titled Games of Teams. And he's the founder of and president of Winsor Jenkins and Associates, and he's here to talk about the essential leadership platform to influence your virtual workforce, build trust, and effectively collaborate. I guess, Winsor, the essence of today's presentation is from your last book, right?
Yes, it's from the new book, Game of Teams.
So with that, I really invite all our participants to really welcome our guest speaker for today. Winsor, you're really welcome. Pleased to have you among us today. So the floor is yours, Winsor.
Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint presentation I'm going to walk everybody through. It basically introduces the platform that I've described in the book. So I just need a little direction here as far as how to get this this PowerPoint loaded into the Zoom.
Yeah, you have the button, the green button below, share screen.
Share screen, here we go. And I need to go where?
So if you have it really on your screen already, so just, yeah.
Okay, share screen. So let's see. So how do we, again, where are we in terms of how do we get this PowerPoint uploaded?
Is it activated? Is it running now? I like the colors, Winsor.
Beg your pardon?
I like the colors on your screen.
Sorry about this. I'm not.
Take your time, no problem.
Yeah. I don't see where the PowerPoint button is.
Yeah. So Winsor, if you'd like to go first and activate the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me do that first. Okay, I've activated the PowerPoint. Next would be what?
Kai, may I jump in here? This is Jane. Winsor,
Thanks.
if you will go to the bottom of your screen and just click the presentation icon for the presentation mode. You see on the bottom right-hand side.
Bottom right-hand side.
There's several icons and one shows a screen. If you will click on that, it will put it in full.
Yeah, it's in full now.
mode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are we
Jane.
good? Are we good there?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Appreciate that. We had a pretty interesting evening. We lost power for about 5 hours in a library because I don't have I don't have any power at my house. So, kind of a makeshift setup, but it works. So here we go. So yeah, our conversation today is really about understanding the essential platform that I've described in my book, Game of Teams, to influence your virtual, which for many of us, if not most of us, is going to be, and it's a platform that's used to help build trust, and basically it's used to effectively collaborate. So my niche is collaboration, collaborative leadership, and I've spent a number of years now writing and talking and teaching people how to effectively collaborate. This is a little bit of history in terms of who I am. I worked in manufacturing for 30 years. I worked for 3 Fortune 500 companies. The last company I worked for was a metals company, and I was the VP of HR for 16 years. And I basically used what I've described in my book for the last 8 or 9 years in that 16-year period with my team. That team was made up of a number of HR people that located in 8 different locations throughout the US and 1 location in Monterrey, Mexico. So we had about 14 people total that were part of the team that I had to manage. I also had 3 people at the corporate office that were on the team that worked under this platform as well. So I got my coaching training in 2011 in Santa Barbara at the Hudson Institute. I'd done a lot of coaching in my career, and I finally got to a point where I thought I better get officially trained, right? So I did that, certified with ICF in 12, started my own business, coaching business and leadership development business in 14. I retired from corporate and decided to take everything I had learned and leverage that as a coach and as a consultant. So that's what I've been doing for the past 6-7 years. Along the way, I partnered with a friend of mine and we developed a program called the Collaboration Game in 2016. And that's a one-day business simulation that we use to help people understand what it takes to collaborate effectively. Besides writing a book in 2007, and when I was still working, called The Collaborator, I worked with ATD and I co-authored a book they wrote called Focus on Them. I was one of 5 authors that participated in that project, and I wrote the chapter 3 on collaboration. And I graduated from Cornell many, many years ago, and the University of Idaho. And that's kind of a quick review of my history. When we talk about leadership, this is a transition. When we talk about leadership, I always like to focus on this idea that leadership is an influence process. And I try to build some consensus with people that starts here, and then we roll it out from there. So my question to the audience, or my questions to the audience, would be around these bullet points as far as trying to understand and build consensus around these bullet points around leadership as an influence process. Followers are the most crucial factor in any leadership attempt. Without followers, there's no leadership. That's the end of the argument, in my mind. Influence for me helps determine the personal power a leader has to help leverage followers' commitment levels to achieve results. And years ago, when I was working, and this really comes from his influence on me. You've got personal power and you got position power, and personal power is something that must be earned. And once earned, it can really drive the followers' commitment level as opposed to their competence level, right? And then commitment level determines not so much what happens when you're there, but what really happens when you're not there. And again, that's paraphrasing Ken Blanchard, to give him credit. And that's really key today more than it was 30, 20 years ago, as we deal today with the pandemic and the virtual workforce, and the future of the hybrid setup down the road. So if everybody sort of is okay with that, that's a good baseline to start with, and then we'll move forward. Any comments, questions that we want to take on at this point? We'll have an opportunity at the end of the session to do a Q&A thing, but I'm willing to take on any questions as we go through as well. Okay, so another place where I try to build consensus with folks is right here on this points. Again, can we agree that we're living in challenging times? Feels like it's fairly obvious, right? Requiring more effective value-adding leadership with teams and team-based applications really being the norm. I mean, the growth of teams and team-based applications just continues to increase, goes up. The challenges around management innovation in terms of what's needed to produce more effective value-adding leadership. This is something that I picked up a number of years ago from Gary Hamel. And Gary, you guys being in the European space may know more about Gary than some others. Teaches out of the London Business School. And he's been beating this drum for many, many years in terms of looking at management innovation as a more effective way to produce value-adding leadership and to position companies to be more competitive. And he compares management innovation to product innovation or process innovation. When we typically think about product and process innovation, all the very few times do we actually look at management innovation as an option. The key challenge here under this management innovation application is developing an alternative mindset. And I describe this as a collaborative mindset, which obviously to produce collaborative leaders, influence people. The big thing that I've found in my history is the fact that many people don't function with a collaborative mindset, especially in the Western world, right? In the US, for example, we all grew up thinking about, how do I get ahead? How do I get good grades? How do I do this? How do I do that? There's very little effort made to focus on the we. How do we get ahead? How do we collaborate? How do we achieve results that are effective? It's all about the I. And that's something that I think obviously needs to change. It's not an easy change because, again, we're talking about going up against cultural norms that make it very difficult. Yet the argument remains the same, that management innovation form of a new alternative mindset. I also like to use sport to convince people to change, whatever that might be. I'm a big fan of Nelson Mandela. As most of you all know, if not all of you all know, he did quite a bit with rugby back in the mid-90s in terms of trying to change things in South Africa. And he was pretty effective doing that. My game is soccer. And I use soccer as a fitting example of a sport with a collaborative environment. It produces a high level interdependence to optimize the team efforts, the team results. And interdependence is the is the key buzzword to use in terms of trying to find a way to describe a collaborative environment. Again, it's about the we and not about the I. So again, that's another series of talking points, learning principles, whatever you want to call them, that we need to agree on in order to move forward. And again, it's about building a consensus. So if you're with me so far, you're staying with me so far, we'll continue. And again, any comments, questions, observations here for anybody?
Really, if I may jump in, Winsor, so I'd like to open up to everyone. So anyone, so if you'd like to ask questions, go ahead. For me, I can see that there are many really intriguing concepts and notions. I'd like to ask about these notions and concepts, but I don't know whether you'll be really digging deeper into them later on.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that right now. So let's keep digging.
To jump to the conclusion.
Yeah. So I like to start out here and then bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. So then we'll focus on the platform here. So just a little bit of backdrop about the book, The Game of Teams. It's a story about collaboration, obviously, and the importance of coaching to become a collaborative leader. And I'm a strong proponent of coaching, especially team coaching, because that's a huge challenge compared to the one-to-one coaching that most of us are familiar with. In our story, we have a new manager. His name is Jim, who gets promoted. His learning agility is key to his success, and this includes his ability to develop his self-awareness. And again, from a coaching perspective, I'm preaching to the choir if we're talking about self-awareness. The book is written as a story, as a business allegory, and the story is about a journey that Jim takes to become a collaborative leader. So using Jim as the main character, he's introduced to a coach. Her name is Tony, and Tony is the team coach that will take Jim through a series of learnings and events that help build his collaborative leadership skills. Along the way, Jim learns why a collaborative mindset is a need to have leader quality. And Jim also learns that his journey is never ending. It's a lifetime journey that he, like all of us, has to go through to succeed. The book was written as a quick read. I've tried to simplify things. That's kind of what I do in my work. So it was written as a quick read for people working as team managers, focus on the front line. I believe it's really got an appeal to the millennial workforce out there. We'll find out. People working on teams aspiring to be team managers would be another group. People interested in developing collaborative mindset, team coaches, consultants, organizations who are interested in developing a culture of collaboration. The book would be helpful for those folks. So the book is, again, organized to keep things simple. It's part one deals with the transition that Jim goes through. Part two deals with some development challenges that Tony has with helping Jim succeed. Part three lists the number of coaching that addressed by Tony and Jim, and then part four gets into about 7 or 8 different team development challenges. And it's not all inclusive, but it's a representative sample of what teams can expect to face when they try to become collaborative leaders. Part 5 deals with a conclusion. It's pretty short, and then the appendix has I think 4 or 5 different resources, little tools that you can use to help transition what you've read in the book to your own personal development. So the essential platform in the book is really centered around these developmental platforms. One is described as the operating principles. One is described as competencies. The third is coaching. So no surprise there. The first developmental platform is really specific or focused to the mindset that needs to be developed. The competencies, the second platform, is focused on skill set. And again, the third platform, coaching, is focused on performance improvement. And as you most likely know, especially when it comes to team development, it's the research is pretty it's pretty solid as far as being able to stand up and say that without coaching, teams perform suffer. So the whole platform here is really develop mindset before skill set. And that's important, again, because we're talking about developing an alternative mindset. So this is the platform in a simplified form. You've got little boxes here that represent assumptions, principles, competencies that are used to produce win-win results. I like to tell folks that, collaboration is a simple concept. It's just not easy to execute. And I'll get into that here in a second. So if we're talking about the mindset, this is again, sort of a prelim to the principles. We're talking about positive assumptions being key. Now, this may sound fairly obvious, but trust me, when you talk about assumptions, people either have negative, or what they call theory X assumptions, or they have positive assumptions, theory Y. And this really comes from the work of Douglas McGregor back in the 1960s. And he wrote a book called The Human Side of Nature that described theory X, theory Y assumptions. And theory Y, or again, positive assumptions, may seem like this is, a no-brainer, but it's really not. One of the best case studies out there that I've used is described as the NUMMI case study, NUMMI. It's a story about General plant down in Fremont, California, which is in the Bay Area. This is back in the mid 80s. I was actually living in the Bay Area at the time. So they had a plant that was totally not performing. You know, it was poor production, poor quality, lots of grievances, et cetera, et cetera. They had to shut the plant down. To make a long story short, they ended up selling the plant to Toyota. And Toyota came in using the same workforce and applying theory Y assumptions and turned the plant into a productive plant. Now, GM, when they had the plant, they were operating with theory X assumptions. And so, as hard as that may seem to believe, it was a case of the Toyota folks come in with their Toyota, the Toyota way, the platform they use to change things around. And they ran that plant for a number of years, and then they sold it. They actually sold it. It's now a plant operated by Tesla. But that's a great example of the power of positive assumptions. Operating principles. In my book, there's 11 operating principles. This is obviously one of them, focus on team, not position. These principles are really simple. The challenge is finding a way to bring these principles to life as you go about leading your team and achieving results. And so focus on team, not position, again, is all about focusing on the results that are produced when all people effectively interact. Other principles I didn't describe in this platform would be like embrace diversity. And again, that's a principle that focuses on relationship building as much as anything else. There's a principle called empower players to win, and that's a principle focused on problem solving and risk taking. And so these principles, these 11 principles, are the framework. And the challenge for the leader or for the team is to understand these and find a way to build some repetition into their daily routine using the principles. And that way they become embedded. The next piece of the platform are the competencies. And what you find is that with each principle are a series of essential competencies. So with this case here, principle rely on each other. The competencies that are essential are relationship building, team manager, and team player. So again, there's about, I think it's 21, 22 competencies that are applied across these 11 principles. And I basically have partnered with a company in San Diego. I use their competency model. It's called the Polaris competency model, and it's been around for like 40 years. And it's a nifty way to find ways to develop people using an established model. So when you put this together in a little more detail, you end up with, again, an operating principle. And this one is coach teams to respond to changing conditions on their own. You have 3 essential competencies in change agility, problem solving, decision making, and communications, or communicativeness, as my friend Bruce likes to describe it. Then you have patterns of behavior associated with each of the competencies. And this is the nitty gritty, if you will, in terms of what needs to be applied, on the front line as people work together to collaborate. So this is a way to align the principle, the competencies, and the behaviors together. And that's that's pretty much how that platform functions. So what I've done also here is I put together a team mini charter. And again, I think we all know, what charters are, right? Team charters. Well, this is the team mini charter with a focus really on what we've already talked about, the collaborative operating platform. Things like mission, vision, values, those kinds of things are still very important. They still have to be addressed by the leader and the team. But for the context that we're talking about today in the book, this is kind of the bottom line as far as the team mini charter. So again, it's a case of using this collaborative operating platform to help drive team behaviors, team norms, results. It also is set up to help address the psychological safety, the team EQ that's key to team success as well. And then from a coaching perspective, the platform it's got built-in opportunities to coach people around the mindset and the skill set applications we talked about. And then on the other side there, it's the case of having coaching opportunities that focus on developing self-awareness. So this is a very simple way to describe the platform, and I found it helpful to help people connect the dots in terms of understanding the relationship, for example, between assumptions and principles, competencies, that kind of thing. So when it comes to development, there's a number of resources described here on this screen. I'll start with a collaboration game. That's what I mentioned that a friend of mine and I developed back in 2016. It's a one-day experiential program, and it really gives people a chance to understand what it takes to develop a mindset and skill set to effectively collaborate. The person that partnered with me on the game, his name is Tim Reeves. Tim is a leading expert in board game simulations. When he and I put this together, he was an independent working in Portland with me, and now he works for Amazon. He sort of got out of that consulting gig and went to work for Amazon, where he's doing the same thing in terms of developing board game simulations. So that's kind of the baseline development piece that we have here. We've got three books here. The Collaborator is the one that describes this platform around soccer, the game of soccer. Game of Teams is the new piece that introduces the influence of coaching teams, which was missing in the Collaborator. Competencies at Work is a book written by a friend of mine, Bruce Griffiths and Henri Washington. And that's the book we use to help with development around competencies. And that's tied in with the Polaris model, the symbol there you see. And Bruce's organization is called Organization Systems International. They're based in San Diego. And so this is the package that we would promote to build collaborative leadership and collaborative teams. I don't have the time today to really go into any detail as far as the collaboration game, but again, it's a one-day program. In the program, we put people in small teams, table teams, so there might be 24 people in the room total, with 4 people on each team, so that's 6 tables. And so their challenge is to go through a series of business scenarios that are described as cards, tactical cards, player choice cards and outcome cards. And so the teams play these 3 cards, and they play 12 sets of these 3 cards. And through that experience, have to come up with the best collaborative solution for the challenge that's presented in the card. And that gives them the ability to move on the game board and accumulate points and win the game if the winning piece is in there. Sometimes we don't throw the winning thing in there. It's really an optional piece. When we do have a little competition and give people a chance to win the big game, we present them with a little trophy, which is described there in the corner. So this is unfortunately, this is something that's not online. It was developed again in 16 for the face-to-face application that most of us are so familiar with. At least if you've been around as long as I have, you're familiar with that. Let's get everybody together, meet face-to-face, and work through the training that way versus the virtual way. But I'm looking into trying to get this thing on a digital platform, so we'll see where that goes here soon. And again, with a competency development option focused on the skill set, and Bruce's organization, the options there are 360, which we use. It's called the Polaris 360. We can customize the 360 to the game and to the competencies that are in the book and the platform. Bruce also has written an article or 2 that describes what he calls the Big 6 leadership competencies, and that's a shortcut to going through the full-blown Polaris 360 assessment. Again, you're going to be, with a 360 assessment, you're going to be addressing about 22 competencies. If you're looking for a shortcut to help jumpstart your team's efforts, then you could fall back on the Big 6. Another nifty tool that we use is called the card sort, and it's a way to give people a chance of their strengths and weaknesses as far as the competencies in their competency bank, without going through something more formalized like 360. So these are the tools that we have available, again, that focus on the skill set side of the development. So that's really the overview that I intended to provide, and I welcome any questions.
Great. So thank you, Winsor, and we open up to the questions, comments, interactions. So the floor is yours. I have a couple of questions, Winsor, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so my first question is, I guess used that this model before the crisis of the COVID-19 and after. So I'd like to hear from you on the main conclusions. So what changed?
What changed before and after?
And before and after, yeah, in terms of team managing and this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what changed?
Well, really nothing changed, because what I had described in my first book in 2007, and then what I applied in that 8-year run when I was the VP of HR with my team, from basically 2007, 2008 to about 2014, before I retired, I applied everything that I described. And that hasn't changed. What's changed is the world's changed. You know, we've gone from a normal world, right, to this pandemic world. And oh, by the way, this model happens to work very well in that new world that's causing us to function, virtually. So it's just, I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but when I was working, I was working in Canada, and I was working in Mexico, and I was working in obviously the U.S. And as I went around and did my stuff and did my work, I kept thinking the world continues to function at a rapid pace, right? It's all about being able to respond quickly, manage change, be more flexible, flatter operations. Maybe that's the thing that's changed. We're flatter today than we were, let's say, 10 years ago. But all these characteristics were, to me, they were representative of the game of soccer. Because when you look at the game of soccer as a model, again, it's an environment where interdependence is key. People have to rely on each other. People have to make changes on the spot. There's no place for a timeout. We're going to take a timeout. In soccer, the game is continuous. You know this very well, I'm sure. And so all these characteristics that were embedded in the game of soccer, I just basically transferred into the book. And to me, that was a perfect match for what I saw back in 2007, 2008, when I wrote that book, because the world was, it was getting flatter. Technology was making things easier for people to function. Everybody could compete, in the game of soccer, everybody can compete, right? It's not dependent on size. You don't have to be 6'7" or 7'1". Play soccer. You can be a little guy. You don't have to be 320 pounds to be a lineman in football, right? In soccer, you better be about 160 or 140. That was always, a key distinction for me. So, the game hasn't changed. The idea of using sport as a way to influence people hasn't changed. What's changed, again, is the world has changed in terms of this pandemic. So,
yeah, but speaking about teams, so what did you notice regarding the team's dynamic? How they are interacting, how they are really collaborating in this virtual world. So how things changed. And speaking about leaderships, how leaders could deal with that new reality?
well, in my mind, what's changed as far as teams is the teams that are functioning virtually are always looking for more structure. Okay, in terms of understanding how to function from a distance. They're looking for more structure. And so the operating platform that's in the book is a way to provide structure, okay, for teams. So if I'm working with you and we're operating, for example, with this platform I've described, and we're working with an operating principle focused on team, not position, then you understand that, I understand it, we both understand from a structural perspective what it means, all right? And we also understand what it means in terms of the competencies that are associated with that operating principle. So again, if you look at the whole platform, you've got these 11 operating principles that really provide the structure to effectively perform. And that's what teams are lacking today. The guy sitting in Tokyo trying to work with the person in the US or the person in Europe, whatever, there's lots of miscommunications around what things mean and how teams are, supposed to perform. So this platform gives everybody a common baseline. All right. Because it's the game of soccer, my argument too is that it's a more acceptable perhaps platform than some other platform. I mean, I couldn't introduce, for example, to folks like yourself or people in Brazil, I couldn't introduce a platform that was based on the American football game, right? Because number one, it doesn't fit. It's a dated model metaphor, because the game of American football promotes a command and control mindset. The game of soccer promotes a collaborative mindset. And so, but people don't, I mean, you got to have a common ground here, right, to communicate with folks. And I thought soccer was one way of bridging cultures, whether I'm working with you or working with a friend of mine in Germany or a friend of mine in Brazil. If I start talking a little bit about soccer, there's an instant connection. And then I build on that. And I think that's really the challenge moving forward. Whether you use this platform or not, there's a need for a platform.
Yeah.
So,
but Winsor, if we look to soccer, so the soccer of 20 years ago is not the soccer of today.
oh no, it's today's soccer is yeah. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is actually my question. So what's different about the soccer before the COVID-19 and the soccer now?
Well, soccer today, I mean, at least for the last number of years, is really more about, when my team gets the ball, we're all on offense, right? When your team gets the ball, we're all on defense. So it's an all-in mentality. And again, this all-in mentality is a key ingredient to success. I'm thinking if you've looked at an IBM, there's an IBM CEO study that's produced every year. Their most recent study talked about, this all-in idea. People have to be all in order to effectively compete in business. And that's consistent with the way soccer's played today. 20 years ago, it wasn't quite the same way. The game was slower. The game was a little more one-on-one, maybe is one way to describe it. But I mean, you didn't see, for example, if we're talking fullbacks in soccer, running up the field to try to score 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Those guys held the line, they held position. And that's a big change in the game. Peter Drucker, many years ago, I want to say back in the 60s, I know he's written about everything, and he talked about soccer, and he thought it was not an effective model because it didn't do the things it's doing today. He used to think of soccer in the old way, right? Where soccer today is quite dynamic, quite different. So that's the argument I would make.
Great. I'd like to, I don't know whether there are some kind of interactions from our audience. So if you have any comment, question, interaction, please go ahead. If not, I carry on with another question. So Winsor, if you don't mind. And sure. my question is about the collaborative mindset. So still, I need to hear more from you about.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, most people over here, I would argue, function in what they call a group mindset, group mode. And I describe that as, an application that is around let's cooperate, let's communicate, let's coordinate. But all three of those things are not collaborate, right? They're different. And each one of those is a useful application. I'm not taking anything away from the importance of coordination, communication, etc. But it's not the same as collaboration. And because of the, again, the cultural influences that drive the application of, let's coordinate, let's communicate, let's coordinate. Those kind of applications, they're all function of, what's worked in the past under a mindset that's more top down than bottom up. So collaboration is really the new game that needs to be developed for folks over here in order to really effectively function as a team, right? Because I can coordinate with people, I can communicate with people, I can cooperate with people, but if I don't want to collaborate, I won't. I mean, collaboration in a way is putting a lot more at risk than those other choices I mentioned. Okay. Collaboration means, I bought in, I'm going to cover your back, which is for me, quite different than coordination, and that kind of thing. So, it's a huge challenge over here. I mean, it's probably going to be a huge challenge anywhere to get people to understand that there is a distinction between collaboration and these other applications. And I'm not the only person that's making this argument, by the way.
And if I'm a leader and you're actually listening to your presentation and really wondering what to do exactly to embrace that mindset. So what would be your say on that? What would be the first single thing to work upon to embrace the collaborative mindset?
Well, the first thing is to look at your assumptions. Again, are you functioning, are you operating as a leader with positive assumptions about the potential of people to get the job done? If you are, then you can put a check in the box and move on to the principles. If you're not functioning with positive assumptions, you're functioning with negative assumptions, which really means that you've got to force people, you got to coerce people into working, into getting the job done, then that's a problem. You're not going to be able to effectively collaborate. Positive assumptions, one, then move on to the operating principles that I've described in the book, and I've shared, I think, 2 or 3 of them today with the audience. So it's those principles combined with positive assumptions that really give you the best chance of being an effective collaborative leader, operating with a mindset that's productive.
Yeah, great. So could we change and replace the word of negative assumptions by limiting beliefs? Is it the same thing, or there are some slight difference?
Yeah, no. The word assumptions and beliefs they're the same. I could talk about belief in exchange for the word assumptions. They're the same thing. I'm using assumptions based on the work that Doug McGregor did with this whole theory X, theory Y many years ago. In fact, a couple of years ago, I wrote a blog about theory X, theory Y assumptions, and it happens to be probably my #1 blog. People were so positive about learning about this theory X, theory Y. I was overwhelmed. And so when I go to talk to people, I usually bring up this question about theory X, theory Y to see if you've heard of it before. And if you have, do you understand what it means? And, a lot of people have not heard of it. So.
Okay, great. So I think with this, we come to the end of our webinar. So last word, Winsor, if you'd like to share something before we leave, your contacts, how to get in touch with you. So
Yeah, you know, if you're looking to learn more about me, you can go to www.windsorjenkins.com website. And again, there's no D in Winsor. A lot of people want to put a D in Winsor. If you'd like to email me, it's wins, W-I-N-S, @windsorjenkins.com. That's pretty easy. And I'm pretty responsive, so feel free to reach out.
okay, great. So you heard it. So if you have more questions about the platform, about these interesting techniques and tools, so you can just reach out to Winsor and he'll be really responsive. So with that, we come to the end of our webinar. I'd like to applaud you for this powerful and insightful presentation. Thank you, Winsor. It was our honor to have you on board. And I'd like to thank everyone who's really here within this call. Thank you all for being here, for making this happen. It was about trust. This summit was about trust, and you trusted us, and we made it together till the end of this journey. So thank you all. I applaud you all, and with your help, I'd like to really convey my acknowledgements, my gratitude to the one who really worked hard behind the scene, who is really the team, our team. They did a great job, so they made it happen. And especially, I'd like to invite Meha. I know she's still here, working behind the scene, doing a lot of things to make this really work smoothly. So Meha, I'd like to, with your applause, so I'd like everyone to encourage Meha to say something. So I'd invite you to say something. Meha, go ahead.
Hey everyone, thank you for attending. Thank you, Winsor and the other coaches for presenting such insightful webinars. Everyone here and everyone who attended made this summit a success. So I thank you again, and we'll see you in the next summit and the next webinars.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Meha. We appreciate it. So thank you all. We hope to see you soon in our upcoming events. So we have our contacts, you have ours. So let's keep in touch. Thank you all, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.